Love lives here.
Thank you. All right, so get out of the way. That's going to be our topic today. So how about we do this with all the O's this morning for our focus statement. So let's say our focus statement with all the O's. So what are some O's we're going to say this with? Outstanding, outrageous, overwhelming, opulent. What? Outlandish, okay. Took me a second. Omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent, all the omnis, okay? All that, and a bag of chips. Overjoyed. Okay, here we go. We embolden people to live their highest potential through the transformative power of love. Yes, indeed. All right. So, this year here at Riverside Center for Spiritual Living, we are working with the theme of Live Your Best Life. And this spring, we have been working with the theme of living into your vision, living into the vision. And it has been a wonderful series. I would do say so myself. And today we are at the last day of this series of living into your vision. It doesn't mean that you stop living into your vision, people. It's just that this is the last day of the series of living into your vision. And next week we start our summer series, because 2 weeks from now, this guy is going to be on sabbatical. So, starting June 4th, I will be on sabbatical. Vicky's hissing. But I have a whole slew of people who are going to be here on Sunday mornings that are just going to rock this summer for you. You are going to absolutely love each and every one of them. And I just know that it's going to be a fabulous summer for our Riverside Center for Spiritual Living, as well as for moi. So, all right, so I just wanted to share. So we are finishing up this series. I'm going to kick off the next summer series. Then I'm going to have my fabulous peeps handle it all summer. And then I'll come back to you. And then on September 17th, we will wrap up the summer series. And I'll wrap that up for you on September 17th. Sound good? Sound like a plan? Yes. All right, good. That's an enthusiastic yes, at least from me. So let's recap what we've been working with of living into the vision. So over the past 12 weeks, we have had the opportunity to identify our vision. We've had the opportunity to identify what it is that we most want, what it is that we most desire, what it is that's calling us, yes? And then we got to work. We got to work looking at our incompletions, those things, remember the list of 100, those things that may be kind of lurking about, the closets, the resentments, the clutter, the junk drawer, all those resentments, all those incompletions. And then we dove into shadow beliefs, the hidden shadow beliefs of what it is that we are believing, what stories we made up about ourselves, what stories we made up about our lives, and how those old hidden shadow beliefs have been unconsciously running our lives, and we have the opportunity to then change them and create empowering beliefs that then start a new cause, which then creates a new experience, right? A new cause, first cause, a new cause creates a new experience, right? And then we had the opportunity to look at all of our disowned qualities, those bits and pieces like, I'm not that. You are, not me. I know you are, but what am I, right? We had that opportunity to look at those disowned qualities and bring ourselves back into wholeness, because when we reintegrate our disowned qualities, then we are coming back into wholeness, and then those disowned qualities, those things that we don't necessarily like about ourselves, no longer trigger us. Remember, we were talking about triggers that week. And then we moved into boundaries and how setting them, boundaries set you free. They're not limiting. Boundaries are what we will agree to, what we say yes to and what we say no to, and how we make sure that we get our needs met. And who crosses our boundaries? We do. Nobody else crosses your boundaries except for you. Got to take ownership of that, right? So it is up to us to maintain our boundaries. If somebody's crossing our boundaries, it's because we've allowed our boundaries to be porous. So we get to maintain those boundaries. Boundaries set us free. Then we looked at unconscious commitments. What are those commitments that we've made in the past that keep running things? These are tied in with those. They're tied in with our shadow beliefs. They're tied in with our disowned qualities. And so what is it? What are these unconscious commitments? Oh, I've committed to playing small. I've committed to struggle. I've committed to lack and limitation. I've committed to living in fear. Remember, those are those unconscious underlying commitments that when we bring them to light, we are able to make a different choice about them, and we are able then to lift up and see something different so that we can make a new choice, an empowering choice. Yes? All right. Then from unconscious commitments and choice, we moved into looking at how self-forgiveness leads us to self-acceptance, which then leads to self-trust, which then leads to self-confidence. Because if we have the self-forgiveness piece, then we're able to accept all the bits and pieces of ourselves. We're then able to trust ourselves, and when we can trust ourselves, then we can have confidence in all the choices that we're making and the way that we're living. Remember that self-confidence, confidence, con fideles, with faith, it's having faith with ourselves, having faith in ourselves, so that we can trust ourselves, so that we can move forward and step into a vision, living into the vision that we have envisioned for ourselves, the higher idea for ourselves. And then we talked about our hidden superpower. These were those pieces of ourselves, those really great qualities, like, you're an amazing artist. I'm like, oh, no, this old thing, no. Where we try and dismiss our greatness. We try and dim our own light. And these are hidden superpowers. And so we talked about, once again, coming back into that wholeness and really embracing the totality of who we are, embracing all of that so that we can step forward into our brightest light and let our little light and our big light, because our light is not small, let our big light shine, right? Taking center stage in your life and going, I'm here. Right? So we talked about that. Then last week we talked about what if and what if up, right? The power of the two little questions of what if, and in creating possibility for our lives. What if everything goes right? What if I get the job of my dreams? What if we create a family? What if I find the perfect partner? What if I have a fantastic sabbatical? What if we continue to grow and expand? What if, right? And we were able to what if and create all this possibility. And we learned that when we create this possibility and that our thoughts, these thoughts then generate these feelings, and these feelings then are amplifiers for the thought. Remember, the thought was kind of like tuning in on the radio dial, and then the feeling behind it is the volume control. So you want to crank that puppy all the way up, the what ifs. And so now today we are at the final session of this series, and it's get out of the way. All right, so now I've given you like the whole thing in 5 minutes. And I want you to know that you can go to YouTube, and we have a YouTube playlist already set for you for live your best, or living into the vision. So you can go through and you can go back and revisit all of the messages and all of the tools that we've shared with you. You can find all of the tools, all of the discussion questions on the website. So you can revisit this information as much as you want to and take it as deep as you want to go. So, today, get out of the way. Get out of the way. Right now, we have a friend's dog staying with us. We're dog sitting for a friend. And the other day, the dog caught a squirrel. And I'm getting ready to go on to a Zoom meeting in 5 minutes that is a one-on-one with somebody that I don't really know that well, so I really need the house to be quiet, right? And so Luther, all of a sudden, I'm sitting there, and I hear this screaming noise outside, and so I jump from my chair, just like, 'twas the night before Christmas, to see what was the matter. All of a sudden there rose such a clatter, right? But there was this screaming noise, and so I go running outside to see what's going on. And there's Luther with a squirrel in his mouth, and the squirrel is screaming. And then I start yelling, no, drop it, no, no. And he's just holding on to it, waggy tail and everything going. And our two dogs are barking. The squirrel is screaming. I'm yelling. Nothing's happening other than Luther's really excited, right? He's the only one that's really happy in this situation. The other two dogs are like getting excited about being in this situation too, right? So all this is going on. So I run out there and I start chasing Luther, right? And what happens when you chase a dog with a bone or chase a dog with anything in its mouth? What does he do? He runs away. So the more I advanced, the more he ran away. And just waggy, right? So I keep advancing, he keeps retreating. I keep advancing, he keeps retreating. I go around this way, he goes around that way. Finally, I crash into the table that we have on the lanai outside, and the chair bangs against the table. That startles Luther for a moment, and the squirrel gets out. The squirrel is free for a moment, right? The squirrel is free, and so the squirrel then runs, and he runs around the tree. Why did you go around it, squirrel? He runs around the tree, he runs right back around, and then he climbs up on the lanai, underneath on the wall, right behind the barbecue. And he's sitting there, right, panting. And he's there. And Luther's like, rawr, 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 rawr. So, squirrel is now breathless. There's only a few minutes left before I gotta be on this call. I'm still yelling, the dogs are still barking, and now Luther's barking because the squirrel is free, and the more I bark at the squirrel, the more the squirrel is going to respond. And I was like, really? All right. So, there's more Luther's story, there's more squirrel, so don't worry. The squirrel, just remember, the squirrel's now hanging on the side of the house, clawed into the stucco, breathing heavily. So, the universe acts much like this, right? When you pursue trying to make something happen, when you go after it, when you're yearning for it, when you're longing for it, what happens? Just like Luther, it runs away from you. The more you want it, the more you yearn for it, the more you try to get it, the more you try to achieve it. Whatever it is, the vision, whatever it is, it continues to move away from you because you are focused, which is good, but you have an attachment to an outcome. You have this deep need to do this in order to save the squirrel, whatever it is, whatever the squirrel is, whatever your need is. And so that need is what is motivating you. And because that need is motivating you, what you're actually signaling to the universe is, I don't have it. What you're actually, remember, when we focus and we put energy behind it, then we create that thing. So, focused, but there's the need to make something happen. There is the need or the attachment to an outcome. And because there was an attachment to the outcome and there's a need in order to, there's a yearning. So it comes from a place of desperation. So when it comes from a place of desperation, just like Luther, it runs away from you. It eludes you. It moves away. So there's a big difference between focus and attachment. Focus, when we focus on something, this is how we create, right? When we focus on something and we give it the loving, fun, power, the energy behind it, then what happens with focus and this fun, loving energy, this passion behind it, not in order to do anything, but just for the fun of it, just for the love of it, just for the energy of it, when we do that, we focus, and then it's like we're sculpting, right? Spirit greets us, and it shows up in fabulous ways, and whatever it is that we're trying to experience begins to show up. We get inspiration for our next inspired action or feeling or movement, and so we follow that, and so we're guided to the next right action rather than trying to make it happen. But when we have focus and then we have attachment, then it works in opposite. It works against us. When we have focus and we're trying to make it happen, that is attachment. That's attachment. And the attachment itself, being attached to something like that, then shuts off the flow. It impedes the flow. So we have to get out of the way. We have to let those attachments go. The attachment acts like a door closes on the possibility. And the more you're attached, then it's like you're barricading yourself in and you are stockpiling your sofa and your chest of drawers and the coffee table and everything up against the door, not letting the flow in, not letting the possibility in because we're now blocking it because we're so attached to it. So we have the opportunity to let it go, get out of our way. So attachments come in three forms. Well, they come in multiple forms, but here's three examples of attachments. Attachment to outcome. So it has to be this. I will only accept the red car. I will only accept the red car if it is newer than, 2022, and if it's fuel efficient, and it's also a Sportster, right? And so we're limiting, and we're limiting that idea. We are attached to a specific outcome. When we get that specific, right, that specificity, we're attached to the outcome. Or we're attached to the, I need this in order to. I need a partner in order to be happy. I need $1 million in my bank account in order to feel safe. I need the new job for my security. Right? Those are the in order tos. And those are attachments. We become attached to those things. Or, how about this one? An attachment to the process. Or for our Canadian friends, an attachment to the process. Right? An attachment to the process. Meaning that you're attached to how it happens. It's my way or the highway. I am attached to this way of doing it. It is my way. It can be no other way. And because it is my way, I am attached to it. I know that it's good. I know that it's right. I know that it's absolutely perfect. So I'm not going to let any other possibilities in because you're wrong, I'm right. And so we're attached to the process. And when we get attached to the process, that attachment begins to put things in our way. Or another form of attachment that often gets in our way, it's an attachment of limitation. Like, this isn't realistic. It's not plausible. This is the only plausible, realistic way that this is going to happen. This is the only way, this is the only possibility, this is the only realistic, plausible thing for us to be able to follow. This is the only real course of action because there really isn't any other course of action that makes any good sense. So when we're attached to all of that, or any one of those attachments, then we are in our way. We've put up obstacles in our way. So, the squirrel, Luther, right? Me on a time clock. I'm like, okay, so me yelling, the squirrel screaming, what is that doing? Is it's only amping up Luther even more. It's only amping up the dogs even more. All that's happening is a cacophony of noise at the moment, and the squirrel is huffing and puffing on the wall. So what I need to have happen in order to have peace and quiet, you see the need, and in order to, I kept trying this same pattern because I needed the squirrel to go away so that the dogs would be quiet, so that I could get on my meeting and all would be well. And I needed it to happen now. I was still very attached, and so I was continuing to drive this energy. And then I paused, took a deep breath, and allowed inspiration to happen. Like, how about this? How about we make the happy voice that we all talk to our doggies and kitties in? I'll make the happy voice. And I will get them to come outside into the front yard by following me with my happy voice. So I shifted the focus, and I got them out of the backyard and into the front yard, not by forcing, but there was an inspired action that was like, right, I'm doing this. And the dogs are going, but I have a choice here. Come on, Luther, come on, Oliver, come on, Paisley, come on, let's go out front. Right? And what happened? It was like the Pied Piper. It was great. And then I closed the door. I closed the gate, so now they're out front. No more barking because they can't see the squirrel. So I go back, and there's the squirrel, and I was like, okay, we still have a minute or two. I still need to... And then the squirrel jumps on top of the barbecue and looks at me and scolds me. And I'm like, my dude, I just saved your life. A little gratitude would be nice right now. And he's like, and then he finally jumped down. And again, ran around the tree. I'm like, up the tree. Ran around the tree into the further in the backyard and finally found another tree to climb up. And the squirrel lived. Yay, you were worried about the squirrel, I know. So the squirrel lived, right? But I had to change what I was doing and let go of my attachment to making sure that I was on that Zoom call, and I still made it. I was a little out of breath, but I still made it, and everything was fine. Those 5 minutes felt like the longest 5 minutes in my recent life, but it all happened, and there we are. The squirrel survived. I let go of the attachment. And what if now I began to make up a story? If I began to make up a story of like, that Luther, he's a bad dog. He shouldn't have been barking at the squirrels. That Luther, I can't trust him out in the yard by himself because he might catch a squirrel. Oh, his daddy should have taught him better. Right? What if I began making up this story about Luther? And then I got worried that, every time I let him out into the yard, he's going to be catching a squirrel. And then, if he catches the squirrel and then, I don't catch it in time, I can't save the squirrel, then, he's a mess, the yard's a mess, the squirrel's a mess, everything's a mess, and then I got to clean it up. And then what am I going to tell, Luther's daddy. So I begin to, if I make up this story, then I begin to worry, right? I make up this totally bad story, then I begin to worry, and then I go into worst case scenario. And once I'm in worst case scenario, well, then worst case scenarios can just continue on, can't they? Right? All of a sudden, I'm in worst case scenario land. I've bought a condo. I'm having my mail forwarded to me. Because I'm stuck in that worst case scenario. So here are some of the other ways that we get in the way. We make up stories, false stories, bad stories. And so if we're going to assume something, people, how about we assume the good? Right? Rather than assuming that the guy who cut you off on the freeway is just a jerk, how about we go, I wonder if maybe he's in a rush. Maybe he needs to get to the hospital because his mother's sick. Why don't we begin to assume something different? Because when we shift and we assume, if you're going to assume something, let's assume something good, right? That's one way of shifting that. Worry. Worry is an amplifier, yes? Because worry is basically praying for what you don't want, right? And we create all kinds of stories in our minds. We create what we're going to worry about in our minds, and then we just crank up the volume on that. So we're focusing our energy, and we're cranking up the volume. Well, as we know from last week, what happens? We create it. The universe is responding. So whatever it is that we're worrying about, and we really turn up the volume on it, now we're creating that for ourselves. Now we're creating the discord. Now we're creating the disharmony. Now we're creating the antagonistic. Now we're creating the angry people. Now we're creating all these things that we are worried about. So worry is just a misuse of our creative energy. So we can shift our creative energy, yes? By everything we've talked about before. We can shift that creative energy. And then worst case scenarios, right? We get into that worst case scenario where we mentally rehearse something. Mental rehearsal in and of itself is a good thing. Mentally rehearsing is a way of visualizing, mentally rehearsing. So if you want to improve your basketball skills, as that famous study showed, that if you mentally rehearse making the free throws, you do almost as good as though you were actually practicing making the free throws. Yeah? Flight attendants mentally rehearse all the time when we're sitting on the jump seat as we take off and land. They are visualizing, they are mentally rehearsing opening the doors and getting out of a plane in case of an emergency. That's mentally rehearsing. These are positive things of you look at the worst case scenario perhaps, and then you form a plan. You mentally rehearse what you'll do in that worst case scenario. So the same thing we can do with what-ifing, the what-if up. So if we arrive at a worst-case scenario, then we can begin to apply what we were talking about last week with the what-if up to create possibilities. So, okay, this is the worst-case scenario. This is the worst thing could happen. All right. So what if this is here for my highest good? What if possibility? What if possibility? What if possibility? So we what if up the better possibilities so that we can then begin to create a strategy, or we can create a plan, we can create possibilities for if the worst thing should happen, then I have some strategies, I have some ideas, I have some possibilities in place for me to take. And so we're coming at it from a more empowering place. This is what we do in business, right, with the SWOT analysis, right? Strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats, SWOT, where we look at worst-case scenarios or negative possibilities, and then we what-if up. We brainstorm new possibilities, new ideas. So if this thing happens, then we have an opportunity. If something happens, then we have the opportunity to see greater possibilities, right? So if you are moving into that space of worst case scenarios, then you can what if up your way out of them. Sound like a plan? Okay. All right. Yes, let's do it. All right. Remember, what you focus your attention and intention on multiplies. What you focus your intention and attention on multiplies. So it's time to get out of our way, yes? It's time to let go of our attachments. And one of the ways we can identify our attachments is, what are we complaining about? Each time we complain about something, it's an indicator that we're attached to something. Oh, she didn't do that right. Oh, he needs to do this better. Oh, they should have been here yesterday, right? The minute we start complaining, those are indications of our attachments. So what are we going to do? Let them go, right? Are we going to hold on to our worry? No. Are we going to hold on to our catastrophizing? No. Are we going to hold on to making negative assumptions? No. What are we going to do? We're going to get out of our way, yes? All right, so we're going to focus on the vision. We're going to focus on the fun. We're going to focus on the feeling of love, of passion, of joy. We're going to focus on being open and receptive, and we are going to take the next indicated step. Remember, but if we want to change, if we want to transform, we have to have a clear vision, we have to make empowered choices, and we have to take inspired actions. And we have to get out of the way. And so it is. And the squirrel lives. All right. So I invite you to, I invite our practitioners and our core councils to please stand and surround the sanctuary. These beloveds are in service and in prayer every single day, and they are available to you for prayer immediately following the service. As Amber mentioned, she and Constance will be in the prayer room. And if you are online, you are welcome to send an email in to prayer@riversidecsl.org if you'd like a prayer request there. All right, so turning within, recognizing one right here and right now, there is just this one power, this one presence, this one love that is forever expressing, forever creating, forever giving of itself, through itself, as itself, forever making all things new. It is an expression, it is a container that holds infinite possibilities, but it is boundless. Its center is everywhere, but its circumference is nowhere. So it is boundless, infinite, wide, eternal, and always expansive, with infinite possibilities. It is all-knowing, all-present. And how good it is to know that it is joy, and it is love, and it is abundance, and opulence, and peace, and harmony, and divine order, and divine action. How good it is to know that. And so what I know is that because there is only just this one life, that I am one with this one. I am inseparable from it. It is the very who of who I am. There is nothing else I could be made of or made from than Spirit itself. So I am Spirit itself made manifest. I am an incarnation, impartation, emanation of this one life, fully living and expressing and having my being in, through, and it as me. And as I know that this is true of me, I know that this is true of all of life, of all of creation, of everyone gathered here this day. And so I speak my word for our beloved Riverside community and each one who has presenced themselves here, now, whether it's now, in this very moment, here or later, it is still always now. So I speak my word here, now, recognizing that there is no obstacle in the way of our vision, that we simply allow all those obstacles. We allow the attachments that we've been holding on to. We allow the false beliefs, the hidden beliefs that we've been holding on to. We reclaim our disowned qualities. We reclaim our wholeness. We say yes to the greater experience and expression of life, and we are passionate about that. And we focus on the vision. We focus on our vision, and we bring to it joy. We bring to it love. We bring to it peace and vibrancy and vitality and harmony, and we align ourselves with it, and then we simply get out of the way and let Spirit do its thing. We get out of the way and let Spirit show the way. We let Spirit inspire us, inspire in Spirit. We allow it to breathe us. We allow it to breathe us in, and we allow it to express itself through each one of us, through our words, through our deeds, through our thoughts, through our actions, through our feelings. And as we do, Spirit creates, Spirit paves the way, Spirit brings the vision to life, Spirit brings the vision that much closer. Remember, we're not pulling it to us, we are arriving at it. So we arrive at a fully realized vision, the highest and best for each one and for all of creation. And so I give thanks for this truth. I give thanks for this unfolding. I give thanks for letting it go, letting it be, trusting and knowing that all is truly well. I release this word into the law, and so it is.